The program you're about to watch contains strong language that may be unsuitable for children. Parental guidance is advised.
Welcome to another episode of Victoria's Lounge from the Azure Hotel, Nairobi. Sex, it's the forbidden word around teenagers, but it's all around us. It's something that is unavoidable, and yet we're not having a conversation that is reaching a generation that is getting information as quickly as they're forming ideas about sex. So, how do we go about this conversation? Are they engaging in sex? How and why? Well, these are questions that we posed to a group of teens, all over 18, who gave us the real deal. And we concealed their identities so that we can assure their privacy as they share their sexual experiences. And after that conversation, we'll be speaking to a panel of parents, teachers, mentors, and NGO actors to get their view on the whole matter. Let's meet them now. Maxi Eric Gitau is currently the adolescent HIV and AIDS specialist with UNICEF. He's an adolescent and youth policy programmer with experience in behavior change and national and international advocacy on HIV and sexual reproductive health. Antonina Mutinda is a wife, mother, and Bible teacher, serving as a training leader for Daystar Institute Africa, and a youth mentor who believes in unleashing the God-given potential of youth in our country and continent. Lydia Ngwiri is a high school teacher and counselor dealing with teenagers and young adults. The mother of four is also an author of 4 books that touch on parenting and adolescence. Ernest Wambui is a husband, a father, and author, as well as speaker. He is the founder of Powerhouse, a men's program that aims to inspire men to express their sexuality purely, to love their women passionately, and to live their lives purposefully. You can keep up with Ernest's writings on his award-winning blog, Pen Strokes. Kendi Ashitiva is a psychologist who has a knack for science and people. The mother, wife, and media personality co-founded Nisikize, which is Kenya's first 24-hour counseling call center. Kendi also works with women on a forum called Girl Talk Kenya. Remember, hashtag Victoria's Lounge is how you can chime in to the conversation on social media. Tonight we're having a very pertinent conversation. It's not easy, but it's something that is happening and something that needs to be addressed. So I have 5 young people with me to talk through their sexual experiences and hopefully educate you on what's going on with our young people today. Thank you guys for joining me. I want to start in a place where it's not easy to talk about. It's a bit uncomfortable, but let me start with you. When did you first have your sexual experience, your first sexual experience?
I think I was in Form 3. Yeah, I was finishing Form 3. Yeah, that's when.
How old were you then?
I was 16, 17. Yeah.
Okay. And by that time, was that with a significant other?
Yeah,
someone you were dating?
Boyfriend, I thought was my boyfriend.
Okay, it's interesting you say you thought was your boyfriend. So at that time, you must have felt you were ready for this, or what was the case?
I didn't think that maybe I'm ready or am I not ready. It just happened and I woke up and was like, oh, yeah, it happened.
What were your thoughts about sex and just basically your knowledge?
Okay, personally, my family, my mom, my parents were really free with me. They were open with me. So they used to tell me, like, this is what happens. They used to tell me that from, like, when I was 13. So they used to tell me, you know, this is... So sex wasn't, like, it wasn't something bad for me. It was something... It's sex, like, it's there.
It was just
like,
there.
Yeah.
And it's because of, I guess, the atmosphere that they set for you
yeah.
at home, which sometimes is not the case in a lot of homes, Kenyan, African homes. Let me come to you. What was your first experience like?
My first experience was when I was in Form 1. The peer pressure from the Form 4 girls, so like they influence you. It was an estate girl, so like she used to we used to go out together, chill out, like on the same age, but it happened now. She started introducing me into sex life. She shows me this and this. We play like the truth or dare game, and then bang.
So did you feel the pressure, or was it something you wanted to do at the time?
Actually, it starts more of temptations.
Okay. So how did you feel after that? Did it, because a lot of times guys are like, hey, feel like more of a man, but what did the experience do for you?
The first time experience, it makes you like, you want more. So like, you go ahead, you'd be chilling with the same chick, and then like, you continue, and then when you guys break up, you just look for another lady.
As for me, I did it because of the peer influence. Like most of my friends kept on asking me, are you a virgin? Like, why don't you try this? And I was like, I'm not fitting in because like all my friends have done this. So as for me, I did it because I wanted to fit in. Yeah.
And after that, because you were about 16, 17, you said, when it happened.
Yeah.
And then after that, what was your thought about sex?
Okay, afterwards I was like, wow, I think now I fit in. I think this is what is happening nowadays. For me, I felt I'm okay.
So you felt more valuable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting now more attention from the
like,
guys?
At least even if I talk with my friends, we are free. They know I'm not a virgin. Yeah.
And how about you? Was it a pressure situation, or was it something that you felt you wanted to do?
My situation is, okay, I had promised not to have sex till marriage, but okay, in the way peer pressure, you go to high school and it even doubles, So like, I was like, okay, let me just try this once, but like, you can't stop.
Why did you make the commitment not to have sex until marriage before that?
I think that time when you're in primary and you love to go to church and you love to make good decisions, to make people happy, yeah.
Let me come to you, because you've actually, how old are you now?
23.
You're 23, and you've been abstinent to this point.
Yeah.
Why? Because you've heard all the stories from everyone else, and you've been through high school, university, and there's pressures and there's things that come your way, but why did you make the decision not to have sex?
First of all, I'm a born-again Christian, and one thing that derailed me from having sex is I had too many thoughts about the after. This one time I heard a speaker saying that sex is like glue. When you once put it, it will be so hard to remove it. So I believe that if I had sex with this person, it will be a soul tie between me and the person, because I would not like to be joined by somebody who's not my wife and an unbeliever. So that what scared me about.
So you felt like anyone that you had sex with, a piece of you would be left with person, kind of. Okay. So for you guys, do you guys all have protected sex?
Condoms nowadays are not to be trusted.
They can't
In
be
my
trusted.
experience, I don't trust condoms at all.
So you don't use protection in the sense of...
In the sense of
condom.
condoms, but I have like other contraceptives that I use.
Okay. So what about, because now of course the contraceptives would protect you from pregnancy, of course. But what about an STD, STI?
Okay, personally, after what I've gone through, I prefer like now if I'm not in a relationship, no sex. Like and in this relationship I have to know you, I have to trust you. So if we're not in a relationship, I can't.
But how do you know that person doesn't have something?
We go get tested.
Oh, you go get tested. Okay. Is that something that crosses all of your minds? Because it is a risk, even for the guys. Something happens and the girl gets pregnant. Has that ever crossed your mind? Has that happened?
That's why I don't trust condoms, because maybe he tricked me. Like, come to think of it, afterwards is when I'm thinking, maybe this guy tricked me, that he used a condom and so. That's why I don't trust condoms at all, because I think maybe if I use them, it will happen again, because it wasn't a nice experience. He left, and then I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? So I just had to go. My mom was really upset. She was very upset. So even though she was upset, she's still my mom. She still had to take me through it. Now she's like, now you have to be like 100 times more careful than you were.
Would you wish that you had a more open conversation, say with, okay, a bit awkward with parents, but yeah, your parents or a mentor or teacher, do you wish you'd have an open atmosphere for that kind of conversation?
I think it's gonna be really weird. I'd even prefer like your big sister to like take you through it and tell you before than the parents, because it's just weird to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because they already know it's weird for them, so it'll be weirder for us.
And I have to ask you, what has the benefit or value been for you, apart from, yes, the moral aspect of it, abstaining from sex? What has that done for you?
To my view, I think it has helped me concentrate in other issues. Like now, concentrate on issues of my finances, school, about building my career, something like that.
Okay, as we wrap up, I'd like to find out from many of you guys if there is a safe space, because some of you mentioned maybe a peer, a sibling, or a mentor. Is that there in terms of a safe space, someone you can go to talk about sex, to talk about what you're going through? Is it available?
I prefer older girls from age 25 to 30 because they have an experience, so like they'll advise you on the right lady to pick and the right moment to do it.
As for me, it's hard for me because in a way I'm afraid of telling my sister, my elder sis. But when I was back in secondary, I had a peer educator teacher who I was so free with because she was a female. But right now I don't know. Maybe people should find like a way to talk to people from a younger age so that they become more adapted to sex and they don't think it's something abnormal. It's not something, because right now if you start talking to your child, let's say from primary, about sex, by the time they're in high school, they know they have a choice. It's up to you. You can do it and these are the consequences, or you can't do it, or like that. So I think you should start from a younger age, from that.
Making them more aware so they can make more informed decisions
Yes.
when it comes to that point. Thank you all for coming and being candid and honest about your experiences. I hope it educates and helps a lot more young people when it comes to their interactions. And this conversation certainly continues on the show. Let's take a short break here on Victoria's Lounge. Much more ahead. Welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. We just heard from the teens and just some of their struggles and issues, hence why we had to conceal their identities. But it was necessary because you're the group of people who need to hear this and understand where they're coming from. Let me start with you, Lydia, because you interact quite a bit with the young men at Kiambu Boys High School. What kind of training, sex education more specifically, do you take them through? What can they get while at school?
In school, we have what we call guidance and counseling. So the department where we teach on the issues of self-awareness, self-esteem, because those are the things that make somebody vulnerable to very negative peer influence.
Right.
So we teach that at the Department of Guidance. But on top of that, we have what we call family units, where every student is under a teacher, whom they call a teacher parent. And during family meetings, which we hold every 3 weeks, we talk about issues of sexuality, like adolescent sexuality, the effects of pornography, how abstinence, and so on. And then on top of that, we have a life skills lesson.
Okay.
And the life skills lesson is one lesson per week. Although it has its own challenges. Teaching life skills has its own challenges because in the first place, there is no teacher who is trained to teach life skills. And there is no timetabling for it, but a school can decide, and that's what we do.
And with what you have, how effective has it been? Have the boys been responding to the program?
Very well, responding very well to the program. And even when they go out there and they are in trouble, they come back to the department. and they ask for help.
And Maxi, you deal more from the NGO side of things. There's been a conversation about introducing comprehensive sex education. What exactly is it, and why is it such a necessary tool now to educate young people on sex?
It is a package of study that is to be embedded in the curriculum, that ensures that at particular age, as you grow up as a child into a teenage, there is the right set of information that you're given in the proper manner, so that you are able to constantly make proper, well-informed decisions about your sexuality. It empowers a young person with the not just right information, but also with the right sets of skills. Data that we have from the National AIDS Control Council tells us that 1 in every 5 young people by the time they are 15 have already had sex. Right. But you see, 4 haven't. So it's to acknowledge that these 4 who haven't, we need to retain them on abstinence. But then the ones who are already beginning to have sex, and as the videos were, as the young people were saying, when it starts, and it's hard to stop. Right. So it's to ensure that they have the right package of how to prevent themselves from the negative effects of sex.
It seems like there is an aggressive campaign to kind of get it into the schools. Why is that? Is it because, like you said, it's always been with us, it just has a new name, but is it because the past approaches have not worked as well, or does it have other elements to it now?
I think right now it's also responding to the fact that there is a lot more teen pregnancy being experienced in this country. There's a lot more adolescents who are dying of abortion-related cases at a young age, 15 to 19. And there is also, for HIV, the highest numbers of adolescents ever. We have like 140,000 adolescents living with HIV, and in every day, 49 adolescents are acquiring HIV in this country. These adolescents are in school. They're in our homes, they're in our churches. But the one place they are in most of the time, most of the time in the course of the day, is in their schools. So we do need, certainly, the schools to address both preventive and also treatment-related issues when it comes to what happens to the ones who are infected, or what happens to the ones who are pregnant. This needs to be addressed in school. I know no one goes to school as a health facility, but it's also interesting that every school, upper primary and high school, has a case or 2 or several of teen pregnancies. So these are issues that certainly need to be addressed primarily in the school, even as parents are charged to address them at home, and religious leaders also at the places of worship.
Okay. Yeah. And Antonia, you've been kind of following this whole process, and you have your qualms about CSE, as it's abbreviated. Yeah. But what are those?
We have come to know that comprehensive sexuality education, it is about approaching sex from a human rights-based approach, where you're teaching children as young as age 5 and 6, age 10, that it is their right to have sexual pleasure, and actually going to the extent of giving them techniques of how to obtain sexual pleasure. And it is because of that that the church is vehemently against it. It is because of that that I, as a parent, I am against comprehensive sexuality education, because it is actually a behavior change tool. So it is against the norms, the Kenyan norms. It's against our value systems as Africans, because for the longest time, even before formal education, aunties used to talk to their nieces about sex. But it is being taught sex, age-appropriate sex, sexual information, that empowers you to know that there's a place for sex. And the place for sex is in the family. It is in a marriage. In other words, glorifying abstinence. Yeah.
Maxi, I want to get your reaction to this, because we've seen the pushback from the church, from parents as well. Is there a way that parents, religious institutions, can kind of be incorporated in the drawing up of this curriculum so that it fits, certain moral standards, if you will?
Sure. What I seek to do with the words I'll speak next is just to clarify that the idea around comprehensive sexuality. It's the terminology that everyone is against, because the terminology is also not local. The terminology is brought in. You know, it's a global terminology, and everyone has access to a lot of what globally is known as comprehensive sexuality education. However, we do have a very good system in Kenya. We sit in policy conversations and it's open. There is parents who must speak. There is the different individuals with individuals, agencies and organizations with resources who also must contribute to it. Eventually, what has been discussed and realized in this country is that we are not going to go with the comprehensive sexuality education, because that's not what Kenya wants or Kenya needs. We have a set of sandwich generation parents who really are not equipped. Just as teachers are also not equipped to do life skills education, parents are also not equipped to initiate a conversation. You've seen what has happened when the church in this country has attempted to have a conversation around sex. Everyone rises up in arms and hey, you shouldn't be talking this way. So it's a catch-22 situation. We have a solution. The solution is to ensure that life skills also becomes age appropriate.
Before we wrap up, respond.
If the parents took their role seriously and they taught values right when the child is still young, we will not have that problem of that one. If the teachers also took their role very seriously. The problem with our syllabus is, or our Kenyan system of education, is that we are teaching the syllabus and we are competing as who gets which mean, instead of looking at the whole human being and teaching this person to be responsible. Because what we do in secondary school is taking up the values that were instilled by the parent and then move with them. But unfortunately, when those values are not taught, it becomes very difficult now to move with this child, such that it's when you, even when we have such comprehensive peer education and all that, we still find some people getting lost because of where they are coming from. So if the teacher also was very well trained and given responsibility that my work is to shape the character of these children, it's not teaching any other subject. That is my role in that school. If that was so, we have very many people that can do that in Kenya, such that right from primary school, once the child leaves the parent, right from primary school, there is somebody else who is taking care of that.
Antonia, we'll finish with you.
If we really care about the posterity of us as a people, then we want our young people to be alive, to be healthy, and we must teach them, like what Mwalimu has said, teach them values that will give them, you know, the longest time to be around, because we're not telling them that when you engage in sex early, there is responsibility, and it's not just pregnancy. Of course, unfortunately, pregnancy is what is put out there like this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. The church will tell you, and every religious institution will tell you, a child is a blessing from God. So if you get engaged in sex and you get pregnant, you must not abort, because that's a gift from God. But here we are, you know, just deviating the entire conversation. And what we are doing is that literally we are destroying a generation. Unfortunately, money is behind it, because there are people who are saying, these young people, we can make money with them. Introduce them to sex, they won't be able to stop. What will we give them? Contraceptives.
What I'm hearing in all of this, it really is dependent on the parents in terms of how this information reaches them, and they should be the first point of reference when it comes to sex. You need to have the conversation with your children before anyone else does. Right. Let's take a short break here in Victoria's Lounge. We'll be back with much more. All right, welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. We had just a take on the sexual education aspect of this conversation. Now I have the mentors and audience with me just to delve deeper into what this means and what this conversation, how important it is to have right now. So let me start with you, Ernest, because this is an issue that we heard from the teens. They feel is not being talked about enough from the people who matter the most to them.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is their parents. When it comes to the schools, well, I guess it varies depending on where you go, but it tends to be very surface. And then you represent a very important part of all this, and that's the mentors. Where do you think we need to start with them? I know that's a very loaded question, but where is the most pertinent area that we need to start when it comes to talking about sex and teens?
If there's anyone out there who has an influence on the youth, and they've had any experiences or any personal stories that they've been through, and they know the repercussions of what's going on. I think they need to be bold enough to just get a forum and speak about it. People learn from people connect more with you when you share from your life, huh? And even if you've not gone through, I'm sure you are exposed to a number of people who have stories. There's a program I'm running right now called Powerhouse. So it's a program that helps men express their sexuality purely, love their women passionately, and live their lives purposefully. And what we try to do is bring as many possible who can just share from their lives and say, hey, by the way, I've been into pornography, I've been into masturbation, hey, I've actually even messed around with bestiality. And this is how I started, this is how far it got me. Those stories really hit home when the young people hear them.
Yeah.
I think that's one way of getting
so being real and raw,
Yeah.
really about this conversation. And Kendi, because this is something that a lot of times when we start talking about it in teens, it has a judgmental tone. And it's very difficult for people who are in the parent role or the teacher's role not to have that kind of tone. How do they adopt something that's a bit more accommodating and create a safe space where they can be open?
I'd like to ask any parent watching, what is sex in your house? Define sexuality in your house. Sexuality is not just people getting together in the physical act. It's the entire human aspect of our lives that involves our emotions, how we relate. I'd like to ask, how many of us, actually many Kenyans right now, you find a mother changes in front of the son, or a father is walking around in shorts in front of his daughters. So I think as far as the home is concerned, we have to be really careful. I keep asking my girl, anytime you're showering or need to change, make sure my son is away. What am I doing? I'm protecting his mind. He's 5 years old. So we have the primary role of protecting our children in the home. What are we allowing people to watch in the house? You must have rules. So if mom is walking around in her lingerie and her sons are there, what is she telling her son? Okay, she's provoking thoughts. She's provoking things of, okay. She may say, but he's my boy, but he's so cute. That cute boy is a man. There's a man living in the inside of that cute boy.
Extrapolate that behavior.
To come out.
Yes. So begin by defining correct sexuality in the home. Have proper, how do you express love to your spouse? Okay, don't over express love in an appropriate manner. Have appropriate expressions of love in the home. So as far as I'm concerned, home is the #1 school for sex.
That is a great point, because it has a lot to do with the unspoken, like you were just saying, because we think about the sex talk and you're telling them, it's a lot of rhetoric, but you're not really showing them. And you raise a good point, Kendi, in terms of, Kendi, it has to be the primary school of sex, your home. And I wonder, for any of you in the audience, has that been the case? Has home been the starting point in terms of your interaction with sex, information-wise?
What we are told about sex is a lot of it is filtered. So most people don't actually know how you dress in front of your kids, or how you dress when they're young people there actually does affect them. And so yes, it has happened, and we really didn't think about it that way. Now, because we're going to probably think about it in that same direction, because I feel like now that is where the problem is, and not the actual physical sexual interactions.
Now, let me get back to my panel, because she's also mentioned something of the almost laissez-faire, kind of attitude we have towards sex, young people. It's very casual. And you're wondering, how do we get to this point? Because in African culture, we've been morally, we've had it together, at least. And you're wondering, with this generation, and even from the conversations we had with the teens a bit earlier in the show, it's not a big deal. So how do we kind of have a more healthier view of sex?
I think one of the ways in which we got there is through pop culture, and by that mainly through mainstream entertainment. You go to any DVD store today, get a movie for 50 bob, get a TV series for 50 bob, and I mean, you get 24 episodes in that, and there's a lot of nudity, And what is the message that is being passed on by these actors and actresses? That I can actually indulge in sexual activity, wake up the next morning with a smile on my face, and just move on. And you watch that over and over and over again. It plays in your subconscious, and you believe it to be true. But yet, that's not the reality on the ground. I mean, you sleep with someone, and you wake up, and you're thinking, what have I done? I don't even know their name, So when you see a man have a one-night stand with a woman, and the next day he wakes up macho, just puts on his coat, says bye to the lady, and she's just there waving. It's a lie. So we must be very conscious concerning the entertainment that we indulge in, okay? Because most of its foundation is not based on truth. It's based on deception and the pursuit of money.
So a lot of it has to do with it being glamorized in front of us, and you're made to feel like, oh, so this is what sex is. But Kendi, and you deal a lot with young men and women who have gone through, and they probably have their own regrets. But what is the cost? Because beyond us talking to them about knowing about your sexual and reproductive health and STDs and STIs and pregnancy and all that, there's also the emotional cost.
Yeah.
And what does that entail?
Good question. I think I want to say, I wish I could shout from a rooftop. There's nothing casual about sex. Nobody say casual sex. I just had casual sex. That's a lie. Every day of my life, I listen to people hurt, suicidal, broken, confused, because I let this man in. I was looking for one thing, he was looking for another thing. So when I got disappointed, I'm there thinking, what just happened? But I gave him a valuable part of myself. That he was like, thanks, it's been nice knowing you, goodbye. And the chick is there thinking, what? This past week we're dealing with a girl who was broken up with somebody, and she had sent him some nudes. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So here she is, he's gone off. He has pictures of her naked on his phone. She's devastated, thinking he's going to send them to everybody and ruin her life.
And that's what guys do.
And that's what guys do. Anybody you give power to feed you, you give power to poison you and to starve you. Okay? And sex is powerful. Be careful who you give it to.
Right.
Okay?
I think we also, whenever we talk about the negative consequences of sex, we talk about the pregnancy, the STIs, but young people can avoid those things.
Yeah.
Right? But what we don't really tell people is what goes on even after you use a condom.
Yeah.
Okay? Because a condom can stop you from getting pregnant, but there's no condom for your soul. What happens to your soul? What happens to your mind, your will, and your emotions? There is more to that, and we need to be just intellectually honest with ourselves concerning the consequences of sexuality outside a safe environment, and that safe environment, I'm talking about marriage.
Right. And I want to ask this: is it something that is considered when young people kind of engage in sex? Do they think about the emotional cost, or is it just it's mutual? We like each other, they're attractive, bam, done, and you go your separate ways. Is there any kind of sense of consequence of what this does to me as a person emotionally? We just heard of the young lady who had her nudes. She didn't know where they're going to end up. But is that a concern for young people nowadays?
At this point, people believe that there cannot be a relationship without sex. And for the young people, we have, yes, as Kenya, we are developing in terms of development and everything, but the pop culture is also developing. And you cannot hide our minds from that. We are going to continue seeing things. We are going to continue doing things. We are learning. And as young people, there are people who engage and are like, I'm numb now, I cannot feel it. But there are people who don't engage, but in their minds, their friends have done it so much that even to them, it's not a big deal. And even if you see it in movies and everything, I think it's better to see it in movies than to have to hear from your friends and go and search for it on porn sites.
As a psychologist who has studied the adolescent brain or the teenage brain, now research says that your brain develops up to age 25. So this part of the brain that is, we call it the prefrontal cortex, this part is one that is responsible for executive thinking, decision making, rationalizing, understanding consequences. Guess what? It develops until you're 25 years old. Wow. So you're 21, it hasn't developed, it's developing. Okay, you're not yet done, so you're not able to understand where you are when you're 21, 22. If it feels good, it must be good. Isn't it? It feels good, must be good. Shisha feels good, must be good. Everything feels good. If I can drive this fast and go this fast and then feel the thrill, it must be good. Right. And that part of your brain that is over here still developing it responds to thrill and dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel good. So if you feel good, let's do it again. But as you grow older, the dopamine starts going down and you're like, what was that? So as you become 26, 27, 28, 29, you're like, man, I did some stupid things when I was young, isn't it? Because even your moral development is happening. You're developing your morals and you're like, man, I never want to see some of my exes. I'm like, why? No, I don't want to see you. Because
it's like the common sense part of your brain has not fully come to term, if you will.
Meanwhile, your body is developed. But your brain is catching up slowly by slowly. So hang out with older people that will tell you, honey, That's gonna be very dumb in the next 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
but you would sort of slow down on that guy.
Yeah.
Because in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you look back and think, man, I should never have slept with that guy.
Not so much.
And I think just before we wrap up, one of our audience members raised a very good point that the young people now see relationships and sex as one and the same.
Yeah.
Or sex and love is one and the same.
Yes.
So you're dealing with a generation that has seen those two things as, how do you get them to think differently?
Well, first of all, in our session, this is what we do. We first tell the people, no one has ever died from not having sex. As no one has ever been rushed quickly, he's dying. Like, we need to have sex quickly. No one. The second thing we tell them, the sex is a good thing, okay? It's a good, there are even scriptures from the Bible that glorify sex. Lastly, I think the young generation uses sex as a standard to gauge whether the relationship is good or not.
Yeah.
So I get to a relationship and I'm constantly worried, do they like the sex? Or I'm constantly worried, am I getting good sex from them? And if the sex is bad, I exit.
Yeah.
If you use sex as an audition process, you'll constantly get hurt.
To add to that, the one thing I wish somebody had taught me when I was a younger woman is to have healthy boy-girl relationships.
Yeah.
You see, I have people my age who don't know how to relate with men outside of sex. Even in the office, you just sleep with this one and sleep with that and that. Because growing up, we were taught, leave boys alone. Boys are bad. We were never taught, how do I have a male friend?
A healthy
A
relationship.
healthy, a boy. He's my boy. We're friends. And there's nothing. Okay? So my prayer for all of you and everybody watching is learn how to have friends who are male without sex. You'll find that they are wonderful people, and you find that they actually add value to your life, and it doesn't have to be destructive.
That's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Kendi and Ernest, for your insights, the audience as well. This is a conversation that we can't afford to stop. We need to continue having it. Hashtag Victoria's Lounge. Keep it going on social media, and let's hear more of it so we have a comfortable, safe space for young people, for everyone, all the actors in it, to have this conversation and have a healthy view when it comes to sex, so you can make the right decisions when it comes to the relationships that you have in your life. Thanks for watching. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Thank you to Azure Hotel in Nairobi for hosting us. Let's do this again next week and have a wonderful evening. It's reaching this generation and their ideas.